Bitcoin has a behavior pattern that repeats itself in a cycle. This cycle is called the Bitcoin Master Plan. It is a pattern that has proven itself true time and time again since Bitcoin was created. The level of accuracy is so mind-blowing that it's almost hard to believe it's real. Let's look at the image on the screen right now. At first glance, you are probably thinking, what is this? This looks like a crazy scientist's whiteboard covered in colorful lines and numbers. Don't worry, I'm going to simplify all the crazy data we are seeing here. This chart shows us a cycle that occurs roughly every 4 years. Why 4 years? It ties perfectly into a programmed event called the halving, which I will explain in a completely separate, detailed video about the core economic reasons why Bitcoin goes up over the long term. But for now, we are focusing on the mathematical patterns on this chart. We are going to break down the most massive, repeating trends. First, let's look at the time it takes to go from one peak to the next, the all-time highs. Back in late 2013 and early 2014, Bitcoin reached what was then a massive all-time high. Fast forward to 2018, exactly 1,478 days after that previous peak, Bitcoin hit a brand new all-time high. Move forward again to the next cycle. In late 2021 and early 2022, exactly 1,430 days after the 2018 peak, Bitcoin exploded to another new all-time high. And then we look at the most recent major peak we hit in 2025. How many days passed since the 2021 and 2022 high? About 1,435 days. Do you see the pattern? 1,478 days, 1,430 days, 1,435 days. The time between one absolute market peak and the next is practically identical. It's behaving like clockwork. But it gets even crazier when you look at the blue horizontal lines at the bottom of the chart. This metric measures the exact number of days it takes from the absolute peak of the market until the next halving event happens. Let's look at the numbers. In the first cycle, it took exactly 953 days from the peak to the next halving. In the second cycle, it took 883 days. And in the third cycle, it took 890 days. Think about how insane that is. Around 890 days from the peak to the next halving. Every single time. The whole system is mathematically timed. And since the halving is what resets the entire supply of Bitcoin, which, again, I will explain fully in an upcoming video, so make sure to drop a quick like and subscribe right now so you don't miss it. This metric proves that the macro timeline of the market is completely predictable. Now, the third data point we can extract from this chart is about the crashes. How long does it take for Bitcoin to fall from its highest high to its absolute, miserable bottom? Let's look at the data. After the peak in 2014, it took Bitcoin exactly 410 days to hit absolute rock bottom in 2015. During that time, it lost 86% of its value. After the peak in 2018, the crash took 364 days until it found the bottom in 2019. The drop? 84%. And after the peak in 2022, it took exactly 364 days again to reach the bottom, with a drop of 77%. Look at those numbers. The time it takes to bleed out and hit the bottom was 410 days, then 364 days, then 364 days again. An incredibly consistent timeline. And look at the drop percentages. 86%, 84%, 77%. The drops are slowly getting a tiny bit smaller as the market matures, but the timeline remains fiercely accurate. If we look at this historical data and trust that the cycle is repeating right now, it tells us something massive. It means Bitcoin is projected to hit its next absolute bottom around October 2026. That is not far away at all. And after that bottom, it starts climbing again, which brings us to the fourth metric on this chart. The time it takes to climb from the absolute bottom back up to the new all-time high. From the bottom in 2015, it took 1,068 days to reach the 2018 peak. From the bottom in 2019, it took 1,060 days to reach the 2022 peak. And from the bottom in 2022 and 2023, it took 1,065 days to reach the massive peak in 2025. 1,068 days, 1,060 days, 1,065 days. The climb up takes almost exactly the same amount of time, every single cycle. Now, at this point, you might be thinking, okay, this looks beautiful on paper, but real life is messy. What happens when the world faces unexpected chaos? This is where the chart reveals its most brilliant secret: black swan events. A black swan is an unpredictable, extreme event that shakes the global economy. If you look closely at the chart, you will see moments where the price dropped aggressively outside of the normal lines, like the 51% drop or the 7% drop below the baseline. These represent real-world shocks. For example, the sudden global panic in March 2020, or major crypto exchange collapses and regulatory crackdowns in 2022. When these events happened, the mainstream media declared that Bitcoin was broken forever because it crashed instantly. But look at what the chart actually shows. Even when unexpected global chaos hits and causes a massive, temporary panic drop, the Bitcoin master plan eventually acts like a gravity well. It absorbs the shock, stabilizes, and pulls the price right back into its mathematical cycle. Real-world chaos can cause short-term noise, but it cannot break the long-term trend. What I am showing you here is that the price of Bitcoin is not just random chaos. It behaves in cycles. Anyone who understands how this cycle works, like we are learning today, can use it to their advantage. You can actually know when it makes sense to hold your coins tightly, and when it might be a good time to step away. Now, is it perfectly accurate down to the specific hour and day? No, but it is accurate enough to massively reduce your risk and lower your chances of losing money. For example, look at the period we are in right now. According to the Bitcoin master plan, we are in the exact phase where Bitcoin is trending downward, looking for that bottom in late 2026. This is exactly the time to start accumulating capital in Bitcoin. Now, let me be very clear. I am not telling anyone to go out and invest all their money into Bitcoin right now. Not at all. That is incredibly dangerous. You should never invest money you can't afford to lose. But there are ways to invest steadily, smartly, and with calculation. One of the best methods is called DCA, which stands for dollar cost averaging. It is an investment method I personally use, and I will be making a full video explaining exactly how it works. But essentially, instead of trying to perfectly time the market, you just buy a set amount on a strict schedule. By buying exactly $100 worth of Bitcoin every single Thursday, you completely ignore whether the price is up or down that week. You just execute the plan. Over time, this smooths out the volatility and builds a rock-solid position while we wait for the next climb. This cycle has proven itself over and over. Learn to read it. Don't let the short-term drops shake you out, and always have a plan.